Well, good morning. Bottom line, chainsaws, goats. If you want to see either one of those two, sign up for Uplift because that's happening. The heart of this church and the heart of the church is to love their neighbor, to love God and love their neighbor. And Uplift is one way we do that. It's not the only way, but we invite you, keep your eyes and your ears open because more information will come out in the weeks ahead. Uplift isn't just local either. It's part of like loving our neighbor and embracing the world is what led a small team of us to the Gatani village in Kenya, Africa this last week. Just got back. And so if anything doesn't work out in the message today, it's blame it on jet lag because I'm feeling it a little bit. But we took a small team and we had a chance to partner with Christ Formation Church, which is a 15-year partnership for Eastwind in the Gatani village, as well as Touch Africa Child Education Program. Many of you know that as Kenya Kids, which is the sponsorship side of Touch Africa Child Education Program, as well as local civic leaders and local community leaders, and then a little contingent from Eastwind. And what we had the opportunity to do is to sit and explore future partnership, to listen to their heart about how significant water security and food security are, something that we may not daily or regularly think about that is so near and dear to their flourishing and their thriving is access to water, access to food. And so we explored this together, these entities all coming together, and there'll be more to come. Eastwind has a volunteer advisory team that's come together to help look at how we can help without hurting as we both right here in Boise and across the world bring the goodness of Jesus Christ to practical things. So more to come on that, but that's what I'm coming off of. And then I had a chance to catch Katie's message last week, sitting in a van driving down a road and was able to watch that. And it was so good just to hear that conversation about the journey to joy, to leave isolation behind and find joy through community. And then today we're going to wrap up the third week of this kind of small collection of talks called We Are the Church, is looking at these experiences we have maybe as individuals, but how living into these things or practicing these movements is good for us as a community, as a church community. And so if you're here week in and week out, or if you're Irma, who's one of our online church hosts, every week she's on there, and every week she's on me about my grammar. She's like, you just don't appreciate the English language very much. And I'm like, actually, I love the English language. The constructs of grammar are a little limiting. But I've discovered that words I really like. Words are important, and words are critical to how we might understand faith. And I want to take two words today and want to explore what these words might have to do with worry and trust. Now, the words are easy and simple. I want to see how our understanding of easy and our understanding of simple might affect our understanding of how we live a life of worry or how we live a life of trust in God. So I want to give some base definitions, and hopefully these will work for us today. But I would say that, so easy is something that takes a little effort. Easy it doesn't require an incredible amount of input, and it produces an output. It's pretty straightforward. Things that are easy take little effort, but easy and simple are not the same thing. Because simple might take a tremendous amount of effort, but it's not complicated. So easy takes little effort, but it could be very complicated. Here's what I mean by that. Okay, trust me. Everybody close your eyes real quick. Okay, on the count of three, I'm going to ask you to, I can see if your eyes are open. On the count of three, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and just look out the window or look up here. And then, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, now that's called the miracle of sight, okay? Seeing, for most people, seeing is really easy. All you have to do is open your eyes and you can see. But there's a lot that's going on. There's this light that's hitting the retina. I don't know much about this, so I'm going to kind of recycle it to you, okay? But the retina is this light-sensitive layer of tissue at the back of the eye, and then there's these special cells called photoreceptors, and they take this light and they turn it into electric signals. And these electric signals, what happens as they're doing their work, they travel through the retina to these nerves in the brain, and voila, you see. But seeing's really easy. It's just very complicated. How you actually get an image is incredible, scientific. Some of you know about this. It's wow. Simple, on the other hand, means not that complicated, but not necessarily easy. I remember, middle school, first real strong crush. Got to know if she likes me, right? So there's one mechanism for this until the invention of the cell phone. This was the mechanism. It was a note. Please check one. Do you like me? Yes, no, or maybe. Some of you, like students, I hope you still have this tool because it's a very useful tool. It allows you to kind of assess, yes, you like me. Awesome. Maybe you like me. I still have a chance. No, you don't like me. If you were me, I'm like, I still have a chance. So you're like, yes, maybe, no. So asking that first crush, sending this note was not complicated, but wasn't easy. Like, all the nerves, and you got to get one of your good friends, and you have to arrange how they're going to drop it off, and you have to make sure you get it back before the teacher finds it, because raise your hand if a teacher read your notes in front of the class. It's a very, very few of us, and a very select group of people right now. So what happens as we think about these two things, about easy, doesn't take a lot of work, but it can be very complicated. And simple, not complicated, but it can take a tremendous amount of work. I want to ask you a question just to get us thinking. Every morning we do a few questions, and here's your question. What is something that is simple but not easy? I'll give you an example. Some of you are runners. I'm not a runner. Running a marathon is simple. It's not complicated. It's like, I don't even know how many miles it is, 24 point something miles, and you ran a marathon, or 25. So you ran a marathon, okay? You did it. It wasn't that complicated, but it was not easy. You had to train day in and day out. You had to prepare. You had to work. It took a lot of effort. Running a marathon is not easy, but it is simple. It's not that complicated. So what's something that's simple but not easy? Just to get us thinking about how these two words will work as we explore worry and trust today. Go ahead, turn to your neighbor, have a quick conversation. We'll be back. All right, take just a second, wrap that up. So here's an example. So our next study is called Above All. This fall we're gonna take lessons from the book of Colossians. This is one of the letters that's in the Bible, and we've got these Bible journals for anyone who wants to take one. They're out in the lobby. Grabbing one is easy to do. It doesn't take any effort, okay? So you grab one, take it with you. You don't even have to come back. Like, I would love it if you just took this, put it somewhere, and someday you're like, I'm gonna just crack this open. I want to read the scripture. I want to see what God has to say about living in community and about who Christ is and how following Jesus can change my life. And so that's easy, but learning through the scriptures is not easy. It takes a lot of effort, but it is simple. It's not overly complicated. God wants to communicate with us. And I've thought a lot about faith, and I go, there's this message that I give, I hope you hear regularly, and it's that the love of God is big, and it's available, and it's free, and it's yours. That's the kind of Heavenly Father He is. He longs to give you this good gift. But I think there's a shadow side of that message, and the shadow side of it is this. Once you start following Jesus and receiving that grace and receiving that goodness, you're kind of like, what? This isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. The love of God's so free. Why does this take so much effort? And so the love of God is simple. It's not complicated, but it is not easy. Faith requires discipline and commitment. It requires grabbing hold of something and digging into it and saying, this could be my purpose, and this could be my people, and this could help me understand who I am and who God is and give me direction in my day-to-day living. It takes effort. I've thought about more and more, and some of you know this when I sit with you, I'm like, did you think it was supposed to be easy? It's probably going to take more effort than anything else you do in your life, but the outcome is going to be so worth it. So as we look at trust and we look at worry, let's kind of explore how these two words will shape that up and help us along the way. Now, this whole series, we've wanted to kind of put this in the framework of, like, who is Eastwind, or what is the church, and how do we understand the value of doing this in community? And if you weren't here last week, or you haven't had a chance to hear last week's message about moving from isolation to joy, please do, because there's this invitation in it to say, don't do it alone. And it's really time. And I thought about, like, my cohort, like middle-aged men, and I've realized, like, we probably feel deeply isolated in our lives. We can probably count really exceptional friendships on a couple fingers. And I realize that the invitation is for us to move out of isolation into community and find that joy through community and through cause. And Katie gave a great, I can speak about middle-aged men because I'm one of those. But I don't know about the rest of you, what you've got. But isolation is this challenge for us. And so we come to the church. And we find like Eastwind's big picture is this. We want to be a church that exists for the next door neighbor and the next generation. And we say like, this is so practical for us. We want to be a church that people who are not churched or don't understand church or who are far off from God or they've got more questions than answers, which is really most of us, that you feel so welcome here. That you realize some effort's gone into welcoming me as the guest. They care that I'm here. And so this is what we set out to do week in and week out. Now our mission is to inspire each other to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him. We're just not trying to make a place. We want to be a people. We want to inspire one another to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him. We do that through a handful of practices. The practices are on the wall out in the lobby. Sunday experience, that's what we're doing right now. After today's Sunday experience, we have a picnic on the patio. We have a family ministry kickoff. A lot's happening today on this Sunday. We have service at 9:30, service at 11. Next week, we have service at 5:01. If you're like, oh, it's the pastors and their silly times. Why 5:01? Fine, 4:61. We got service next week happening in the evening, okay? So we got 9 o'clock, we got 9:30, sorry, we have 11, we've got 5:01. Sunday experience is a big deal for what it means to come together, to explore how to encourage one another, inspire one another to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship. Life groups. Not everybody's in a life group, and that's okay. We always want to invite you. We always want to create space, but we just believe this is the lab where we practice what happens on a Sunday experience, where we learn about prayer and practice prayer. We learn about Scripture, and we learn how to read the Bible and approach that. We learn how to be vulnerable and pray for one another. Life groups, we serve together. And then serving in the church. It's a big part of any church community. It's really a big part of any community, that there are those who invest in making it work. Today, you'll see people wearing banana suits. I would say it's not because we're weird, but we actually are weird. So it's just, today you're going to see people wearing banana suits. Those are some of our junior high volunteers who serve in our junior high ministry. Banana Night's coming up. It's like a scavenger hunt for bananas. I know, that's a good sales pitch, right? And so they're wearing banana suits today because they want to let all the junior high students know, hey, let's be there. They want you to go, what's this about? And you say, oh, it's this great event we do. Kids come out, they bring friends. We have a really good time. So serving within the church, being for Boise, that's Uplift. That's day-to-day living. That's you tomorrow when you go to work. That's you in the halls of your school. It's realizing that it's not just trying to follow Jesus and learn about a life of faith, but stepping into your day-to-day life and saying, I'm going to learn how to be for my classmates, before my teachers, before my boss, before my employees, before my neighbors, before Boise and kids and youth. Our budget, our commitments, our time, our passion is leveraged towards the next generation. We care deeply about. I love that our students, they're not just here, they're scattered around both services, but they are working behind the scenes. They serve in the church. They're driving things forward for us. They're asking great questions. Kids and youth are core to who we are. And in the midst of this like structure that I just presented, there's some questions we're wrestling with. Who is God? Who are we? And how then should we live? And so each week as we live and work on each of these experiences, these pillars, these are the type of things we want to explore. So in this series, in that framework of the church, week 1, we asked this question. We talked about the experience of fear and moving from fear to courage and how that is a movement of the spiritual life in Christ. Is moving from a life of fear to a life of courage. And today we kind of return to those themes. And then week 2, last week, Katie talked about the experience of moving from isolation to joy. And that's such an interesting movement. Wait, moving from isolation to joy, and the whole idea being that being in community begins to give the structure or the scaffolding to your life, that joy becomes a byproduct of it because you're not alone, you're not isolated, you're growing together. And this week, we're going to wrap up this series by talking about how to move from less worry in this life to more trust in God. How can we move from less worry? And I think if I took a straw poll, but I don't need to, I'd say, how many of you would love less worry in your lives? I think we'd be like, count me in. I didn't even want to poll you, and you guys are like, yes, count me in. Like, I would love less worry, but here's the challenge for us. Back to those 2 words, easy and simple. Worry's easy. It's not hard. It comes naturally. If you have a gap in your brain for just a second, worry's like, oh yeah, baby. Thank you so much. And worry, friends, worry is such a good listener. Like worry will come right in and go, oh, so what's happening right now? Tell me more. I'm just all ears. Tell me more. So then what's going to happen? Ooh, and then what's going to happen? Oh, tell me more. Get it all out. Then you think worry's your friend. You're like, yes, worry. I used to, before cell phone days, I'd hop in my car and I'd head off to work. inevitably, I'd hear sirens somewhere along the way. You know right where my mind would go? To my sleeping wife and my sleeping baby back home. Is the house on fire? Like just one random siren, 20 minutes from my home. The gap in my brain goes right to, should I turn around and go back home and make sure that I unplug the iron? Should I? I gotta get to work. Okay, fingers crossed. I'm gonna, like that would start my day. And then you just fill in all of the blanks. If you're crazy like me, this issue of worry is so intense that I like bacon. Me and like everybody, except for a couple of you, okay? And I grew up with like lack of bacon in my life. Whenever we had bacon, 2 pieces maximum. Some of you are like, that's a lot of bacon. I didn't think so. Then I go to college. In college, they have this thing called a buffet, breakfast buffet, every day. So every day for 4 years, I acted like it was the last day ever there would be bacon. And I piled bacon on my plate. I stockpiled it. I would have stored it if I couldn't have eaten it. It's just, I thought about that. And then if it's in kind of a joking way, I'm like, isn't it funny? Like my brain would literally be like, that might be the last 2 pieces of bacon ever. And nobody loves bacon more than me. So why should you get it if it's the last 2 pieces of bacon ever? Now, that's not even serious. Think about the stuff you and I worry about. Think about what worry is like in our lives. I found a visual for like just a day-to-day reality of living with worry. I have so many questions, by the way. That's worry, though. Just go ahead. Snake on your fan? Hopefully it stays up there. Some of you are dying right now. Right? In a conceptual sense, that's what your brain's doing all day long. Everything's a snake on the fan. Everything's like, okay, it's getting clear, okay. And then we contrast that to this reality. So worrying about life and trusting in God. Trust is simple, but it's not easy. It takes effort. That's what I thought about. If I asked you to close your eyes and think of just one trusting relationship in your life, it'd probably take you a second, and then you'd pull it up. And if I said, what is it about that relationship? And you'd list probably a few simple things. Time over time, they're consistent. I can count on their word. They've been there for me even when it's been difficult. It's not overly complicated, but there's a lot of effort that went into building that trusting relationship. And so when I sat and I thought, these two are, let's just say, in our lives, I think there's one slice of pie for this stuff. And it's like worry or trust. And it's how much of that pie of your life is worry and how much is trust in God. And that's what we're moving around here and we're trying to figure out. So thinking about worry, I was like, okay, words that come to mind. Anxiety. In the scriptures, anxiety and worry are almost always interchangeable in a translation sense. So if you're reading the Bible and it says worry or it says anxiety, that's just the same word connotating the same impact on your living. It has to do with control and tomorrow. I think about words like anxiety, concern, unease about potential or anticipated problems or events, outcomes that'll be negative, a general sense of uneasiness. A basic definition of worry might be a state of anxiety and uncertainty over actual or potential problems. There is useful worry in our lives. It comes in for a moment. It reminds us, I left the stove on. You run back home. You're a little, like so it's actual or potential problems. And some of you are like, yeah, but Carlos, worry works because nothing I ever worry about happens. So it's like 100% successful. And I'm like, yeah, but at what cost? At what cost? And so let's explore how trust contrasts with worry. A confident belief. I'm borrowing this definition. David Horsinger is the author of it. A confident belief in someone or something to do what is right, to deliver what is promised, and to be the same every time in spite of circumstances. And that's the invitation of faith in Jesus. Can you trust that he will do what is right, that he will deliver what is promised, and that he will be the same every time in spite of circumstances? For a real beautiful picture about trust, I'm going to go to someone's life. But first, I wanted to just tell you some of my worries and some of my trusts. My worry list populated so fast. And if you hang out with me, you'd be like, he's not a generally anxious or worried guy. It's just kind of how I'm wired. But when I said, what am I worried about? Right away, boom, my kids. And they were like sublists right away. My heart's desire is that my kids would love God and love each other all the days of their lives, right? I start to go, what if one of my kids does it? What if they like branch off and somehow they don't connect with the other kid? And my brain's starting to go, right? I'm like, no, stop that. Oh, good, money. Oh, talk about sublists there, right? Money this, money that. Will there be enough? Finances. That balloons into a bigger thing. And then I go, okay, I just turned 48. Man, I've been really struggling to get back in shape. My inability to get back into healthy living is kind of worrying me a little bit. And then the church, like all the infighting and the arguing and the division and the I'm better than that goes on in the church and that I'm often part of. And sometimes you are. And I'm like, oh, it worries me. And I thought, this church, Eastwind, will our women's bathroom ever get fixed? Come on, insurance company. Who of you is eventually going to go, I'm not going to that church anymore? It took them 2 years to fix their women's bathroom, right? And then this one, Sunday night service next week, I worry it's going to be a total flop. And then we're going to have to be like, so everybody, we have 2 services at 9:30 and 11. And right now we're pretty crowded and it gets more crowded in here. And we want to make more room because we have been growing. More people are coming and they want to experience the goodness of Jesus Christ. So we're adding another service for that. But I wouldn't be honest with you if my worry list didn't include Sunday night service, like pie in the face, big failure, right? That's not a pitch for you to don't make me worry. I'm just saying, it came to my list. And then I thought, the people I know and love will give up on Jesus and walk away. Maybe through a formal process or informal process of deconstructing, or maybe they'll just go, you know what, I've looked over there and it's just, that's more appealing, that's better, that's where my life is. I worry about that. And I thought, okay, well, what do I trust? Who do I trust? And right away, Emily, my wife, came to mind, a confident belief in someone or something to do what's right, deliver what's promised, to be the same every time, regardless of circumstances. And then I thought about the power of those several really close friendships I have that I've had for decades and how I trust those friendships. I'm going to be seeing those guys in a couple weeks here and how critical that has been to me becoming a healthy adult. And then I realized most of all, I trust God. That's been the dynamic now for almost 30 years, day in and day out, no matter what the challenge is, no matter what the message is, no matter what the headline is, I want to put my trust in God. And I admire and I look up to this person because she models. That's Corrie ten Boom. We talked about her a few weeks ago and kind of had a chance to explore and learn from her story. She was born in the Netherlands a good deal before World War II, and because of their Christian faith, their family was very engaged in opening their home to other people and to being present for people, often people who are rejected by or cast out of their communities. Well, when World War II started and oppression came to the Netherlands, they found they had an opportunity to welcome in Jewish people who were on the run from the Nazi government. And so they created this little room, the hiding place. It fit 6 people. It was craftily hidden in one of the rooms of their house. And over time, they created space for 800 Jews to find safety and to get out and get away and avoid captivity. That's incredible. But one day, their home was raided. Somebody betrayed them, and in that raid, 30 people were arrested. But the 6 people in the hiding place weren't. They stayed protected, and they actually eventually got out. But the 30 that were arrested include Corrie, her older sister Betsy, and her dad. And her dad died not long after being arrested. It was too much, the conditions of the prison they sent him to. It wasn't a concentration camp. But Betsy and Corrie were not released. The other 27 were. Betsy and Corrie. And then what happens is they end up in Ravensbrück concentration camp. So that's their backstory. And if you read their encounter in Ravensbrück concentration camp, it is one of joy, it is one of faith, it is one of hope, it is one of trust, right in the middle of unignorable pain and suffering and brokenness. Her sister died just a few weeks before Corrie was released accidentally by a clerical error. And shortly after her release, all of the women in her age group died in the gas chamber. So she was miraculously released, and her sister died shortly before that, but her sister would regularly say to her, Corrie, there is no pit so deep that he, God, is not deeper. Is that not a trust statement? There's no pit you can stick me in, that at the very bottom of that pit, I'm not going to find that beneath it is the loving arms of God, and he's there for me. And upon her release, Corrie started a rehabilitation program and ministry, traveled the world. She opened her home even to former Nazis who were looking for reconciliation and a new story. She opened her home even to them. and said, Jesus Christ is this good. And here's how she talked about worry. So this is a person who could have worried, had a lot of reason to worry, saw so much daily suffering that they could have said, imagine those years hiding the Jewish individuals in that little hiding place. Every time there was a knock on the door, imagine the worry. Here's how she talks about it. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It only empties today of its strength. Now, that's not her original idea. She's actually taking it from her king, her Lord and Savior, Jesus. Listen to how Jesus talks about worry. Jet lag. Definition of trust. We'll just let this one go. We've all talked about this already. All right. This is how Jesus talks about worry. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life. What you'll eat, or about your body, what you'll wear, for life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. And then he goes on, and he says, in Matthew, he picks up the same story. He says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I listen to this, and I'm like, wait, what? This is your sales pitch? This is your concluding argument? Cheer up, everybody. Tomorrow's going to be worse. Right? That's almost what it sounds like. But what Jesus is getting at, he's saying, hey, today, live. Today is the day you're in. And today, I am deeper than whatever pit you're in. Just be in today. And tomorrow, repeat. And the next day, repeat. He's not saying there's no future. He's saying, I'm with you in the future. So live in today. Be in today. Make today the day that you don't take your worry and project it out. And it is easy. Like, I had this whole write-up initially of like the typical day of a worrier, but it was like all of our lives. And I was like, oh, I don't think I want to read that. Because the reality is, trust is simple. Angela, if we got that message, well, that's a new one for me. Excited to see that. Whoever that is, I'm not sure how to navigate this right now. We're just going to hold out because kids matter. Yes, we might need a better process for that in the future, but thank you for your, yeah. So, trust is simple, but not easy. Oh, thank you. We love you. You're okay. All right? Trust is simple, but not easy. And so we're going to jump into, with this reality, with me standing up here and saying, here's the thing. Jesus gives you the framework. Corrie ten Boom lived it out. Many of you have, where he's like, today's the day. Worry and trust are going to live in just one microcosm of today. We go to the Apostle Paul, follower of Jesus. In his early life that we get to know him, we talked about him a lot. He was so worried about Christians messing up Judaism that he set out with a passion to arrest, drag off, even put to death any Christian he could get his hands on. That's how worried he was. And then he became such a person of peace that at the end of his life, writing a letter to his friends, actually the letter we're going to be in, Philippians, he said, hey, if they kill me, fine. I get to be with Jesus. No worries there. If they let me live, great. I get to tell more people about Jesus. No worries there. If they keep me in prison, awesome. This prison guard's going to come around sooner or later because every day I'm telling them about Jesus. Like, Paul had this incredible sense of peace. So I want to go and say, okay, so Jesus says, don't worry about today. Paul lived a life of practiced peace. Once he encountered Jesus, what was his strategy? How did he speak to people about this? We're going to be in Philippians chapter 4. That's page 953 in the Brown Bible in front of you. If you want to follow along, you can also do it on a Bible app or it'll be on the screen. But Philippians chapter 4, page 953, we start with this. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Now, those of you that have been longtime followers of Christ, here's our very real tension. We become numb and desensitized to these incredible deep truths of what it means to follow Jesus. So we see this, we're like, yeah, rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. And then we go into our day and we're like worry, frustration, angst, anxiety. And he's pulling it back. He says, no, this isn't like a greeting card or a fortune cookie. This is what a life in Christ looks like. It's simple. It's not easy, though. It's going to take daily work and discipline. It's going to take a choice, sometimes maybe a white-knuckle choice, especially when it comes to our worries, to say, not today. Not today. And so he goes on, and he gets to the core of what I want to share today. Do not be anxious about anything. He reads with the same insensitivity as Jesus does about worry. Don't be anxious about anything. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And then he turns and goes, I want to tell you what the outcome's going to be. So you have a slice of pie with worry and trust God all in this mix. And maybe you're not in the trust God place, then it's worry and trust you. But our heart's desire is that you'd see that trusting God is the way forward. And so you have this slice, and he turns and he says this. He goes, and look what happens. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Regardless of where I am in life, if there's a promise that I could have peace, that it would guard my heart, guard my mind, and I do appreciate that even in this ancient text, there's a very real nod to what we know now about brain science, about how our brains work, what they do with the gap, how they fill it, about our proclivity for negativity. And so I look at this, the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. Everything Paul says is not easy, but it's simple. The formula is not that complex. The invitation is straightforward. It's available to all because Jesus Christ has done the hard work. He's paid the price to prepare this way of living for us. And you might be prone to look at this and go, yeah, but you don't know my life. You don't know what's in my accounts. You don't know behind the scenes what I struggle with my kids. You don't know about like the things that hurt that I have not told the people who love me the most about because I'm so worried right now. You don't know about my life, Paul. This is pithy, and this is straightforward, and this is the problem with Christianity. And of course, and those of you who maybe aren't following Jesus, what I'm going to say next, you're going to be like, of course. That's what the church, they're so out of tune with the world that they're like, don't worry, be happy. Have they been in the world? Yes, every day. We wake up. What's that phrase? We put our pants on 2 legs at a time or something. Except when I'm finished, I make gold-plated records. Little shout out to an old SNL skit there. So, what happens here, and the invitation here is this. This is how insanely simple it's described as. Don't worry about anything, any little thing. Instead, pray about every single thing. And Paul speaks in absolutes. And if you're married or you're in a significant relationship and you've had some counseling, they tell you, don't speak in absolutes. Don't say you never. I always, because that shuts down communication right away. But Paul comes in and he's straightforward and free with his absolutes. Never, always, never worry, always pray. Don't worry about any little thing. Instead, pray about every single thing. Paul's got a buddy, Peter. Together, they were leaders in the early church. And Peter writes it this way. He's so simple. He says, cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. But cast is an action word. It's a powerful word. It's a word, I found a visual. I want to give it to you. We're going to watch it like 3 times. This is what cast is like, because we're in Idaho, and everybody likes to catch and release fish. You're thinking of cast as like being in some beautiful river with some like expensive waterproof pants on, and then you're like doing this thing or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's how you fly fish, but that's what you're doing. Okay? And you're thinking, it's this like gentle, cast it's this violent, aggressive, active, immediate, urgent word. Here's a little boy who teaches us how to cast. All right, let's cast all your anxiety on him. Let's watch what he does. They put a fake spider on his head. He's not messing around. So for just a moment, imagine if Peter's language is like, that's what you do with anxiety and worry. It falls on you, whoa, get that off me. Instead of being like, hello, worry, what have you come to teach me today? Nothing good. And so throw it off. And maybe, let me just give you an unrealistic visual. Maybe there's an option in our lives to physically, every time worry comes, be like, well, get that off me. Feel like, what? There's nothing on you. Yes, there was worry. I had all sorts of worry on me. They'll look at you a little weird and then go about your day and keep doing it. Just get the worry off of you. Like cast it off of you. Feel how active that is. I love how the faith's not like become a follower of Jesus and you just won't worry anymore. Instead, you'll have power to live a life where worry is present every day and to choose a pathway of trusting in God through the action of casting off worry and casting your cares on God. Listen to how the psalmist describes it in Psalm 55. Listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my plea. You ever gone to God like that? God, do not ignore what I'm about to say. Hear me and answer me. My thoughts trouble me, and I am distraught because of what my enemy is saying, because of the threats of the wicked, for they bring down suffering on me, and they assail me with their anger. My heart is in anguish within me, and the terrors of death have fallen on me. Does that sound like a worried person? I mean, some of you might relate with those words. Fear and trembling have beset me, and the terrors of death, and horror has overwhelmed me. And I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove, and I would fly away, and I would have rest. But since I don't, as for me, I will call to God, the Lord, to save me. Evening and morning and noon. Notice the casting, the intensity, the work. Evening, morning, noon, I will cry out in distress, and he hears my voice. Notice the trust. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. So how do you do this? And Paul tells us. He says, don't be anxious about anything. And so anxiety kind of produces, I was thinking of some word pictures. It's a life of worry can feel like a knife in your chest. It's just this like kind of ache, this ache that you can't quite remove or deal with. It can feel like a pressure in your brain. It can make it hard to think. It can make it hard to pray. It can make it hard to say things you know you need to say. It can feel like an imposter has hijacked your normal self. Literally feel like somebody else is living your life and you're trapped behind, right? You don't know how to get out. You don't know how it happened, why worry became to mark you so intensely. There's this imposter living your life. It can feel like a rain cloud of fear and doubt. And Paul says, don't worry about anything, any little thing, but pray about everything. And I think I've got some visual up here. I think this is what we do. I got a big old bucket of worries. All right, and I could keep filling this thing. There's no limits to how much worry I can encounter because of how my brain works and how the world works. And you throw a phone into the mix, and it's like, first thing I do is check my phone in the morning, worry. All right, next thing I do is I need to just check my phone to unwind and disconnect from all this worry. Okay, you got to do some work and school and stuff in between, okay? Then at the end of the day, check my phone before I go to bed. Just worry. Wake up in the middle of the night. What's the remedy for all this worry? Check my phone. So my bucket just fills up. It's gotten easier than ever. It just fills up. I'm like, okay, I believe the Bible and that guy Carlos. I'm going to try this out. And so I go, all right, I got some worries. I'm going to give them to God. It's been a long time. And I put them right back in the worry box. I'm like, and so that muscle is so short and that distance is so short that we're like, get some worries. Okay, God, let's see what you're going to do with those. You know who I know knows what to do with those? Me. And I take them out and I put them back. And that's kind of what we start doing. It's like a mind game. And the mindset shift is really simple. The whole problem we've been working with is we have things outsized. We have things out of place. We've got this small God who's trying to deal with large worries. And what we have to do is just begin by inverting. There's a very large God, and our worries are not that big, even though they feel like they're all consuming. And so I don't even just take my worries and go, whew, it's a lot easier. Start scooping them in. I go, you know what's even better? You know what Paul discovered? You know what Corrie ten Boom discovered? You know what I discovered? You know what so many of you have discovered? You take it all and you just bury it. You cast your cares. Your whole life goes under the rule and reign of a big God who loves you, who is for you. And so we find, I want to end with this. Don't worry about anything. Pray about everything. In full disclosure, it's embarrassingly simple and cliche, and it sounds exactly like what an out-of-touch religious organization would present as how to deal with life. But my experience has been it's anything but that. And I wish I was better. I wish I was quicker to cast my anxiety, to grab hold of God. And so Paul gives steps. He's really practical. He says, Okay, so don't worry about anything. So we're going to stop and breathe. He doesn't say stop and breathe, but breath is this beautiful gift we have that allows us to stop the worry, stop this. Just take a breath, stop, take a breath. It puts that rhythm in. Go, okay, name the worry. What am I worried about? What am I worried about right now? It's a meeting at work. It's a presentation. It's a friendship that's kind of like gotten super complicated and our friend group is messed up. It's a phone call or an email from the doctor. What am I worried about? Name it. Don't let it be ambiguous. Cast it on God. Tell God what you need. This is a hard trusting exercise because most of us have been on the receiving end of really disappointing outcomes at times when we've said, God, I need this. And you haven't received that thing you need. But some of us have clung to that relationship and found that God's not like a genie that's like, you get your wishes and you rub the bottle. It's like he's a relationship and he has done the most significant thing to reduce worry in this life. He has taken upon him the price of restoring us to a relationship with God so that this life is not the only life, but we have life everlasting. If all you get is your 70-something years, you better start worrying now because they're finite. But if you're moving into a life where there's no pain, no sorrow, no suffering, no anxiety, no worry, but just peace, then cast your cares on the one who made that way for you. And so we tell God what we need, and then we thank him. I'm not trying to be poetic or underly or overly dramatic. I would love it if you would go into this week and like that little kid, every time a worry falls on you, you take it and you throw it aside. And I know a lot of the worries in this room, none of them are small. You take it and you throw it aside, and you'd say, I know what this worry is. I'm not going to be afraid to say what it is. I'm going to give it to God. I'm going to tell God what I need. I'm going to do that every second of every day, even if I have to do that every second of every day the rest of my life, because my other option is to worry. We know what the fruit of that is. We know what it does to your cells. We know what it does to your blood. We know what it does to your brain. We know what it does to your skin. We know what it does to your eyesight. Like, worry is not producing anything we want. Stop and breathe. Name the worry. Tell God what you need and then thank him. Corey said it this way. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. It began with her relationship with Jesus. She trusted him in Ravensbrook, and she trusted him out of Ravensbrook. So Paul concludes with this. He says, so whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And he gives us this incredible list to bring into our day-to-day life. And so I want to end. We're going to sing a song together, but while the band comes up, would you just look at this list? Maybe name one worry. And in that place, just grab hold and say, God, would you help me replace that or bring into that something lovely or something excellent or something praiseworthy? And just take that as a discipline of us as we head into the week. And we practice a life of less worry and more trust in God.